This is, I think, the third in the series I conducted in English for Kenko Dojo. For those of you who are bilingual or who would like to try your Japanese, we have a similar broadcast on Tuesday evenings at 7:30. Um, and we have a daily uh, broadcast in the morning, 8 o'clock. Just kind of a 1 minute to get you started. So here we are. I said last week that we would discuss see if we can get a chat going here. Hold on. We said last week we discussed weight loss, or body fat reduction. So it's such a broad topic, and there's so many aspects of it. It's awfully difficult to pinpoint it. So what I thought is I'd give you the general synopsis of what it takes to drop excess weight, and then perhaps go into the science. So if the first 20 minutes are enough and you're bored, well, you can say, okay, we'll see you later. At any rate, let me start with the thing that I normally suggest, regardless of whether it's weight loss is your objective or whether training is your objective, whatever your objective is. When it comes to changing your physical appearance or your capacity for physical work, as in performance of an athletic event, or in your state of health, there are three basic parameters that dictate how you should proceed. Hey, Ida-san, how are you? Thank you for joining. So these three parameters kind of pervade everything that we discuss, both in Japanese and on this particular episode. How to proceed effectively, efficiently, and safely. And Ida's mom, Mrs. Ida, thank you for joining as well. So, what is all the different aspects of conditioning and health and fitness, all the information out there, you would think when it is so important, in many cases to your survival, certainly is your quality of life, that people would look at the attributes of conditioning in a more broad-based vision, if you will. So rather than concentrate on cardiovascular efficiency, which contributes to the alleviation of strokes, heart attacks, debilitating diseases, rather than concentrate on internal function like liver and kidneys and those kinds of things, people are primarily concerned with how do I lose weight, and go to extremes and buy into some of the most absurd, scientifically stating, absurd procedures for doing that. So even when I was way back when I was 15 years old and starting on going to gyms, they always had a vibrating machine, a vibrating belt. And it's amazing that at that time it was disproven, and it's still on the market. It's a little bit different now. The technology has advanced, and now you have things you strap on your waist and you vibrate the fat away, which when you think about it is kind of absurd. But people keep buying these devices that have absolutely no efficacy and no benefit. So it's okay. It's just money. It's not a problem. These devices per se are not necessarily intrinsically bad for their health, and they're not really dangerous. They're just ineffectual. There's no benefit. The problem with that is people try something, they spend money and time and invest emotional currency in these kind of devices and tell their friends. And then when it doesn't work, they say, well, it's not the device because the device is scientifically proven. It must be me. Well, I'm not going to proceed with this. And that's the problem, really. It's kind of a credibility thing. So let me tell you what doesn't work. Okay. Any device that does the work for you, that assists you, or not assists you, but pushes you up into a seating position and then you fall back. Any device that vibrates fat away doesn't work. Any device that says breaks down body fat from the outside and therefore it's more easily assimilated body is just, well, let's face it, they're lying to you. The most recent one was promoted by a very, very prominent soccer player. And people pay literally 100,000 yen for this device. And they said, well, put it on my stomach and I'll watch TV and my fat will go away. Again, when you think about it, it's a little absurd. So, but they do this on these television ads, is they take the measurements of a volunteer and say your waist is 95 centimeters. And then they attach this device to you, which is gives an electrical stimulus to the area. And then when it's done, they measure it again, and lo and behold, you've lost 3 or 4 centimeters off your waist. Well, the reason that occurs is because the electrical current that's going through the device takes the water that's in the fat around your waist and disperses it to other parts of your body. So immediately you take off the device, and yes, you will experience a reduction in the centimeters around your waist. But wait 10 minutes and the water will return. So they use that as a scientifically, quote unquote, scientifically proven methodology that justifies the validity of the device that they're trying to sell you. Okay, so that's the game. Is it a scam? Not exactly. Is it dishonest? Yes. It is untrue? Yes. So what do you do? Who do you go to about this? Well, the first thing I think when you're approaching this particular problem is decide whether it's necessary or not. Now, the World Health Organization has dictated, more or less, what is acceptable body fat. So for a woman, the acceptable percentage of body fat is between 18 and 25%, plus or minus 3%. So you have some wiggle room there. So from 15 to 28%, even though it is adipose tissue, it is not necessarily impediment to your health. Excessive body fat is one of the reasons why doctors recommend it right off the bat, is because if you drop weight, your blood pressure will go down. Hopefully, your blood sugar will be reduced, and the risk of having an accident, cardiovascular accident, like a heart attack or a cerebral hemorrhage, goes down as well. So it is not a quick fix, but it is a simple fix, something that you can do. So the problem is not, number one, should I lose weight? And number one, that's the first consideration. So then how do I go about that? Well, you could you could approach it very simply. You could just stop eating completely, and you lose weight, no doubt about it. Of course, your health would suffer, and you probably eventually have some serious problems. But essentially, that's kind of what nutritionists are telling us to do now, but not for a prolonged period of time. So we go back to, is fasting, which is not eating anything and only living on a liquid diet, is it beneficial? There is scientific evidence that short-term, yes, it is beneficial. It reduces the burden on the internal organs. It gives you kind of a chance to recover. There are some people swear by it. But you have to take into consideration your situation, your state of health when you embark on something like this. So it may be effective and it may be efficient, but is it safe for you? So when you listen to broadcasts on the internet, everybody will come up with an answer. In order for this particular broadcast, I looked at different nutritionists and their solution. And some of it is effective because some of them I've tried. 16-hour fast. So if you go to bed at 9 o'clock at night, you don't eat until noon the next day. And that gives you 15 hours of fast. And then you eat from noon until 9 o'clock at night on the basis of 3 meals a day. Or more importantly, eating when you're hungry, as opposed to a strict regimen of, okay, it's early in the morning, it's time for breakfast. Okay, it's noon, it's time for lunch. Okay, it's evening, it's time for dinner. And they suggest you do not adhere to that mode of consumption of nutrition. It's kind of it's relatively new. And what are the other things that they suggest? Well, everybody has a different take on it. But the common denominator in all of these is you eliminate sugar from your diet. I'm not talking about, just the refined sugar. I mean, everything. So like orange juice and fruits that have high sugar content like grapes. If you're really interested, you can go to the glycemic index and look at which fruits have the absorption of that fructose is very, very quick, and that triggers an insulin response. And anyway, I'll get into that later. So what foods do you eat? So the idea is that nowadays, it seems like all of these nutritionists have the same idea. You shift from using sugar as a primary source of energy to fat as a primary source of energy. Of course, with the exception of trans fats, excessive fat in meat, bacon, those kind of things are to be avoided, especially if you have cholesterol problems. But that's their take on it, that you eliminate sugar from your diet and you only eat when you're hungry. And of course, exercise comes into the mix, and we'll get into that in a minute. So what can we get going? Let me review just for a second. Okay. Remember, you want to have an effective methodology. It wants to be efficient. You want to drop weight on a regular basis, continually, and hopefully maintain that. And you want to do it safely. So the World Health Organization's guidelines, I think, are certainly safe. They're recommended by very responsible people. These guidelines may change. And then you get into what is appropriate for me. So most people, when they have their physical examination, there's this item called BMI, okay, Basal Metabolic Index. And that was devised, I think, in 1950s, not by a physiologist, but I believe the man was a mathematician. I'd be happy to stand corrected on that, but it is in my memory. And so basically what that BMI is, it's your weight in kilograms divided by the square of your height in meters. So you can change that to inches and pounds, if you will. So that comes out to a figure. So then you take that, and that's your BMI. Well, the trouble with that is BMI measures everything. It doesn't measure just body fat. It measures bone mass, muscle mass. So everything is thrown into the mix. So it's kind of misleading. Although it's on everybody's, certainly in Japan, everybody's Kenko Shindan, everybody's medical examination, and in the West as well. So my BMI, because I've been training with weights since I was 15, is high. It's, I think the figure the last time I checked was like 33. And I think 25 is the ideal. So I go to a doctor and he says, well, your BMI is 33, so you should lose weight. Well, doctor, my body fat is 16%. Oh, well. And they just pass that off. So that's not explained to people. If you have a piece of paper and a pencil in front of you, I will give you a better way of calculating this. It's not easy and it gets complicated. So I hesitate to do this. But I think for you who are listening, who are serious about dropping weight and who may be experiencing some potential health difficulties, I think it's a good idea to take a look at this. Uh, if you need this information, let me know and I can send it to you. Okay. So the idea, even though currently scientists have suggested that counting calories is not what works. Looking at your basic nutrition and eliminating carbohydrates, that works. Uh, the justification behind that is that counting calories is okay, but how long are you going to do that? Can you live with that? If you adopt a diet that you can live with for the rest of your life, that's the idea. The idea is not to go on a crash diet, whether it's fasting or whatever it is, and lose weight for 3 weeks and then say, okay, that's enough. Well, I'll just go back to eating the way I did, which was the cause of me gaining weight in the first place. So you have to adopt a regimen that is reasonable. Same way with exercise. You can't jump in, well, okay, I want to get in shape, so I'm going to go out and run 20 miles. That's probably not, even if you could, it's probably not a good idea. So you gradually build up to, and you adopt an exercise regimen that you continue for the rest of your life on a regular basis. Now, whether that's once a week or twice a week or 3 times a week, studies have shown that a regular adherence to an exercise regimen and a dietary regimen that you can do now and for the rest of your life is the way to go. It is effective, it is efficient, and it is safe within the prescribed parameters. So there you have it. Okay, so just for a second, let me review the things that have been put on the market that don't work. We covered the vibration device; those don't work. Any electronic device that you apply to your body to apply some kind of low current to eradicate fat is simply a lie. That doesn't work. Exercise. I'll explain that. Yes, it works if you combine it with nutrition. If you don't, exercise can make you fat. And I know that sounds absurd, but just give an example. You go for a walk or a run and say you go for 30 minutes or an hour and you burn 400 calories. Well, your blood sugar goes down. So you get hungry. So you say, okay, well, I'm going to go home and I'm going to have a salad. And that's maybe 150 calories. So I burned 450 calories. So I burned 250 calories. Okay, that's okay. But if you go home and eat apple pie and ice cream with iced coffee and sugar, which I used to do, actually, because of that, the extra calories that you didn't burn are stored. So exercise, yes, it works. It helps. But the real truth of the matter is that exercise without paying attention to nutrition does not work in terms of weight loss. And I see people every day running for a long, long time on the treadmill and bicycle and sweating, and still weeks and weeks and months go by and they haven't lost anything because they have put all their effort in one area, and that is exercise only. Just can't do it. It doesn't work. It simply doesn't work. So weight training. So why exercise? Well, I can give you 100 reasons why you should exercise. Weight loss is a qualified reason. Aerobic exercise is a qualified reason. It does burn more calories than weight training while you're doing it. Basically, weight training only burns about 4 calories a minute in the extreme, whereas depending on how fast you run and how high you raise your pulse rate, you can burn up as much as 7 or 8 calories, twice as much. You probably couldn't continue it for very long, but you could burn a lot more calories while you're running. The problem is only while you're running. So what weight training does is it changes your body composition. and that in turn raises your resting metabolic rate. So compared to the person who's not exercising, you will burn more calories per minute than that person will. And that will serve to long-term facilitate weight loss if you watch your diet. And it will also prevent rebounding. So once you lost weight, it prevents you from coming back to where you were before. If you watch your diet, that's the whole, everything is, all exercise is, the next step is if you watch your diet. So you have to do that. So, resting metabolic rate is a serious consideration, and not only for while you're exercising or even after you're exercising, but what you do outside of the gym, just like anything else. The effects of training, of any kind of exercise regimen, regardless of what it is, the effects of that are realized after you leave the gym. How much rest you get, how much nutrition you take, what kind of nutrition do you take, what level of stress do you have. These kinds of things all contribute to your overall well-being and your progress. So when you embark upon an exercise regimen, whether it's to lose weight or whether it's to gain some kind of increased physical potential, you still have to pay attention to lifestyle, all of these things. So what other things don't work? My pet peeve, plastic running suits. I cannot tell you what a tremendous danger that is. Now, Ida-san, when you go running, you probably won't wear, in this weather, a plastic running suit. We can go get into it. Ida-san always reminds me that I tend to go off track here, but so I'm not going to go into it. But basically, if you wear these heavy clothing or a plasticized suit, all it does is prevent the body from cooling, and you increase sweat, so you lose water weight. You don't lose body fat. And as a matter of fact, because you can't get rid of the heat that you produce while you're exercising, you don't run as fast or as long as you might if you didn't have it on in the first place. So rubberized suits don't work. They got that from professional boxers who have to meet a weigh-in in a very short time. So they dehydrate. And then after they weigh in, they drink, umpteen liters of water, and their weight goes back up again. It's okay. Of course, the burden on the kidneys and the livers, I'm not so sure about. But yeah, thank you, Ruthie. Yeah, super tight elastic exercise suits. Same thing, especially if it's outside. If it's inside in an air-conditioned gym, you can get away with it maybe. But the reason the person buys those elasticized suits is because they think it's going to facilitate weight loss. And it doesn't. As a matter of fact, it usually makes them tired, like I just said. And so they limit the time or they limit the intensity. What it does do, perhaps, is allow them focus on what they're doing. A lot of people require these aids to, for lack of a better phrase, get in the mood to exercise. And to a certain extent, that's true. Junsuke and I have talked about this. What contributes to longevity, to continuity? And basically, it's these aids that convince you that you're doing the right thing, that you're participating. So, are they scientifically, or I should say physiologically beneficial? I'd have to say no. As a matter of fact, when it comes to what you should wear when you're exercising, especially aerobic exercise, it should not be tight-fitting. It should be very, very loose to allow air to circulate, for the sweat to evaporate, to cool your body, because if you don't, the body will continually raise your blood pressure while you're exercising, even with the added benefit of capillary beds enlarging and allowing giving your heart a respite from the demands of exercise. Still, it's just simply not a good idea. I would say no. No, throw that away. Throw that away. So wear loose-fitting clothes. usually as little clothing as possible when you're exercising, certainly in an environment like we had today at 35 degrees and, I don't know, 60% humidity. It's not the heat that'll kill you, it's the humidity. It doesn't allow the sweat to evaporate. Body keeps jacking up the blood pressure, and then you have problems. But if you're in a gym and the gym is air conditioned and maybe a little chilly, the idea is if you're in the gym and you want to continue a long-term exercise, wear clothing that you can layer, meaning you can, as your body warms up, you can take off the sweatshirt. You can take off the first layer of clothing as your body warms up, and that will allow you to continue longer than you normally would if you kept all these layers and layers and layers of clothing on in the hopes that would facilitate weight loss, which it doesn't. It just makes you warm, makes you sweat. So you'll burn. People who wear these things say, well, I wore this and I did my run, and after I did my hour, my body weight was down a kilo. No, that's not true. Well, it isn't. Their body weight may have been down, but their body fat, sorry, it doesn't work that way. The body does not want to burn a lot of excess energy. It doesn't, what can I say? And the lighter you are, the less energy it will burn. I'm 100 kilos, so if I run at 10 kilometers an hour for an hour, I'll burn up maybe 1,000 calories. But if the person next to me is 60 kilos and he runs the same speed for an hour, he may only burn 400 or 500 calories. It's compare like a mini car to a limousine. I mean, gas consumption, right? So the bigger your body mass, the more calories you burn per minute. And the smaller your body mass, the less. And that goes proportionally across the board, whether you're exercising or not. So let me give you the scoop on this. If you want to burn 1 kilogram of body fat, you have to create a deficit. Now remember, you have to create a deficit of 7,700 calories. Okay? Now, if you equivocate 7,700 calories to jogging or running, that means that the average, quote unquote, person who is about 70 or 75 kilos, in exercise physiology, they have to hit the norm, quote unquote. So they can't analyze a 120 kilo person. They can't analyze a 50 kilo. So they said the norm is 70 to 75 kilogram, between 25 and 30 years of age, male. That's their standard. So if you were that man or that young man and you weighed 70 kilos, you would have to run about 20 hours to burn 1 kilogram of body fat. And that's it. If you looked upon exercise alone. Of course, even if you could, your blood sugar would be dropping so low, you'd probably collapse. And we'll talk about that later on as well. So you have to create a deficit of 7,700 calories. You don't have to do it in a day. You don't have to do it in a week. You can do it in 10 days. You can create a 770 calorie deficit every day for 10 days, and you will lose 1 kilogram of body fat. That's the math. People don't want to accept it, but that's the math. So crash diets don't work. Massages don't work. The Japanese aesthetic salons do not work without a nutrition. And recently they've added nutrition to their staff. So we'll give them an excuse. The home use equipment that does the exercise for you doesn't work. Billy's Bootcamp, if you've ever seen it, actually, that's a pretty good exercise regimen. I don't know how many calories it burns, but it's pretty intense. It's not bad at all. But then you get in, again, I don't want to, sorry, Edith, I'm sorry, Junsuke-san. I'm going off on a tangent here. I don't want to get off track here. So, if while I've been babbling on here, you managed to find a piece of paper and a pencil, let me give you the calculation to determine your metabolism. So, what do you think? Do you have a piece of paper and a pencil in front of you, or do you want to hear this? Ida-san, Junsuke, and Ruthie, I've only got 2 people on this thing. Would you like me to proceed with this calculation? Wait a minute. Why don't you send it to me? Anyways, I'm going to do it anyways. Okay. So we get into basal metabolic rate. Okay. That's how many calories you burn at rest. Okay. So I'm going to, okay, for Ruthie, let me give you this. Okay. For women, okay, you take 600, the figure 655. Okay. And then you multiply your weight by 9.6. Okay. And then you add that to 655. Then you take 1.8 times your height in centimeters. And you add that to the previous 2. And then you subtract 4.7 times your age in years. And that the figure you come up with is how many calories you burn at rest. And I assume that's for a 24-hour period. But wait a minute, let me back up on that. That gives you a figure. So, Ruthie, what was your calculation? 655 plus 9.6 times your weight in kilograms plus 1.8 times your height in centimeters, subtract 4.7 times your age in years. So you come up with something like 600 calories, 700 calories. No, you come with much more than that. Still adding and subtracting. Yeah, I know. I've done this. It takes a lot. Junsuke, you doing this? Come on. You gotta jump on here. Okay, so then you come up with your basic metabolic rate. And that's how many calories you burn at rest. And then you figure out your activity level. Okay. And this is somewhat subjective. So if you're sedentary, you don't do a lot of exercise, you take your basic metabolic rate times 1.2. If you lightly exercise, you take your basic metabolic rate times 1.375. Or if you want, you can multiply your weight times 26. And that'll give you your calories added to your basic metabolic rate, which will give you how many calories you burn during the day. So that's the science. You calculate your metabolism, you calculate your exercise, and you calculate your lifestyle. So I know it sounds confusing. It is confusing. Okay. But if you really want to know what you have to do to learn where you are, you go through the calculations. Okay, so let's talk about what you should do. Let's talk about diet for a second. In reviewing this, the whole weight loss program, I Googled a half a dozen different nutritionists. The thing that seems to be, again, the common denominator is everybody suggested that people avoid sugar. That the old way of the pyramid of diet that was way back, I don't know, I suppose in the 50s when the YMCA came out with it, is no longer applicable. Uh, they say eat when you're hungry. Uh, avoid sugars of any kind. That means no bread, no rice, no spaghetti, all the stuff we like to eat. No cakes, no cookies. Just knock it off. If you want to lose weight, it's not easy to do that. I understand. Eating is a complex uh, emotional state. We don't always eat just because we're hungry. We eat because we're stressed out. We eat because we're upset. We eat because we're happy. So there's 100 different reasons of why we eat or why we don't eat. You have to take that into consideration. I have had personally a great deal of success with eliminating carbohydrates and giving myself about 12 hours before I have the first meal of the day. So I go to sleep at 10 o'clock. I don't have breakfast until 10 o'clock later. And I have dropped in the last 2 months 12 kilos. And like everybody else, I exercise a lot. When you exercise, your blood sugar drops, you get hungry. So you go to the first thing you can find in the refrigerator, and it's usually, for me, it was like a bottle of apple juice, which is loaded with sugar, or some banana bread, which is, I love. But gradually, I've kind of weaned myself off that. So when you talk about food, you have to talk about the hunger, uh, uh, not instinct, but what drives you to eat these foods. And the reason is low blood sugar. So the blood sugar drops down, the body says, wait a minute, you've got low blood sugar. We can't continue like this because there's no basis for energy, for movement. So it stimulates appetite. If you're smart and reasonably informed about nutrition, you have a salad, or you might have an apple, which has fiber, or you might have a meal, and that would take care of the problem. But people don't. People snack, and they have a cup of coffee, or they have a donut, or they have the stuff that basically they say, well, what harm can one donut do? And then I feel better. No, it's no problem, and I'm not hungry anymore, and that's good. Well, the problem with that is when that happens, then the pancreas says, wait a minute. Your blood sugar is too high. So we're going to give you a jolt of insulin, and we're going to drop it down again. Well, then the liver says, wait a minute, it's going down too low again. Now we can't have that. So we're going to have to create hunger, and you're going to have to raise blood sugar. So it's that balancing act between your pancreas and your liver that goes internally that we have not a lot of control over. That just happens automatically. We can control it with diet. So if you eat foods that are not readily absorbed into the system and create this need for the body to lower the blood sugar that's raised dramatically, then you can alleviate this. Let me give you some hints. If you're on an adjusted diet, meaning you're eating a balanced diet and you're alleviating sugar, okay, and complex carbohydrates as well, and you're not an athlete, so you don't need the glycogen to fuel the long runs, okay, but you still get hungry between meals. You've had something and you're hungry again, and maybe prematurely, or maybe you're out and you don't have a chance to get to a place where they have food. Drink water. And when you drink water, it tells the body that you're full, and that will reduce the hunger pangs until you get to your next balanced meal. Some tips. So you don't have to have breakfast, or if you do have breakfast, after 12 to 16 hours of not eating is the general recommendation now. Okay, that's number one. Number two, you always, if as much as possible, you reduce simple carbohydrates. So sugars, not only the sugars the refined sugar that you might put in your coffee, but the sugar that's in bread as preservative, or the sugar that's in sports drinks, which is essentially water and sugar. Anyways, avoid that if possible. Stick with water. Coffee and tea without sugar is fine. Those kinds of things. Okay. Eat when you're hungry. You don't have to eat according to the clock. You can eat when you're hungry. Try and finish your last meal 4 hours before you go to sleep, so your body will have at least a chance to assimilate that and not shift it off to storage, which is body fat. Exercise is good, no doubt about it. Weight training and aerobic exercise is certainly advised. Not extremely strenuous, but regularly. So even if you're not jogging and maybe you get to the gym and maybe you don't. You don't have to jog. You don't have to run. As a matter of fact, there's a lot of reasons why you shouldn't run. Walking is fine. And you can walk at 30 minutes a day. And not only that will stimulate your metabolism, that will burn calories. And if you're careful on your diet, you'll feel better and look better, and that will be fine. A note about fat. You don't lose it to where you want to lose it. Okay? Body fat goes away according to the propensity of blood vessels. So when you start to lose weight, I'm sure you've noticed that people say, "Oh, your face looks thinner. Have you lost weight?" Well, that's true, because there's a propensity of blood vessels in the face and head and neck, and that's where fat disappears first. It also disappears where the muscles are, because fat is not needed. Fat provides heat, but the muscles provide plenty of heat. Fat provides protection against trauma, but the muscles and bones are usually sufficient. And fat provides energy, but it's stored on where there are not a propensity of blood vessels, so it's around your waist first. So it starts to be stored at your waist and gradually expands through the body until the whole body is enveloped. Fat is also controls heat. So in the wintertime, your body will, if you notice people who live and work in cold environments, if they are in that cold environment and not in a heated office all day long, you will notice that they tend to get fat. But if they're active in that cold environment, they will burn it right away. So that's the idea of, you can't change your environment. And if you go to a gym, that's a controlled environment. So the heat that the fat generates is the reason it's primarily around your stomach, is because that's where the organs are that are not protected with muscle mass and are not heated. And so it provides heat around those inner organs when it's needed. So three things, right? Stored energy, heat where it's needed, and protection against trauma. And if you think about those things, you'll understand why is my waist getting fat and the rest of my body isn't, or why I'm losing weight in my face, but my fat around my waist is not going away. Well, that's because that's the last place it goes. So regardless of what the ads tell you about spot reduction, it's just simply not possible. It doesn't work that way. It works on the basis of supplying energy when and where it's needed. So don't pay attention to that. That's doesn't work. And all the devices that tell you, like sit-ups will reduce fat around your stomach. Absolutely not true. Absolutely not true. Sit-ups and those kind of things don't burn sufficient calories anyway, so it's not a problem. It's not a consideration. So, confused? I've tried to present this in kind of a structured manner, but as Junsuke will attest to, sometimes I move around a bit, and it's not easy to follow. So the only thing I can suggest to people out there, Ruthie and Junsuke as well, all of the nutritionists that I talk to have one common suggestion: you eliminate sugar from your diet. They also have the common suggestion that exercise on a regular basis. Basically, that's it. Basically, that's it. Eat a well-balanced diet with the exception of carbohydrates. Eat when you're hungry, not according to the clock. And stay active. And if you need nutritional advice, seek out a nutritionist. They have the science and they can tell you what you're eating is good for you or not. And if you want to exercise, seek out an exercise professional. They can tell you whether exercise according to your objective is appropriate for you or not. And if you have a medical problem that you think might be contributing to putting on weight or losing weight excessively, talk to a doctor. So it's the three pillars of a quality of life, and that is exercise, physical aspects, medical aspects, nutritional aspects. Nutrition, medicine, exercise. Those three pillars will get you a long way. So, I can give you more information about what level of exercise produces what level of caloric consumption, but I think that will probably further confuse you. So I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to do that. It's important. You should pay attention to it. And if you have a scientific mind that you want to know exactly how many calories you're burning and exactly what to do, then we have to take it's going to take more than 45 minutes or an hour on this YouTube to get that across. But if you have questions, hey, write in, send me a note. We have on Saturday nights, we have Kenko Salon, and that's more interactive. So we can talk about a person's particular problems interactively. Unfortunately, we have to charge for that. There are expenses that we have to meet. It's been lowered significantly. I'm not trying to sell anybody anything, but if you want interactive communication, somebody to talk to specifically about your problems and your situation, I think that's one option that is very, very inexpensive. I think that would help you a great deal, but that's entirely up to you. This will be done again on Tuesday evenings at 7:30 on Kenko Dojo. And I'd like to tell you what I would like to talk about next week, and that is stress and the contributing factors to stress, how you can avoid it, and what, if you're not careful, what the results will be if you have too much of it. So, if you don't have any more comments, and Ruthie is not so confused, good girl. Junsuke-san is, he's probably just, I don't know where is he gone. Anyways, so look, I appreciate you, Ruthie. I appreciate the support. Thank you for participating, and Junsuke-san, thank you for participating. And any suggestions about how this could be done better, I am open. For me, this is kind of a new direction for how I want to take what I know, but it is well-intentioned. The intent of this Kenko Dojo is to offer people information and create awareness of something that they may not be aware of and that may be intrinsically damaging, instead of what it's supposed to be is contribute to longevity and a high quality of life. I always maintain that fitness and health, while for some people are objectives, for most people they're the means of achieving other objectives, like playing with your children or playing with your grandchildren or being able to go through life and climb stairs without pain, things like this. I hope that over these following weeks and months, maybe, that we do that. And if you have any criticisms or suggestions, I am certainly open to hearing them. So that's about it. It's we're a little past our deadline here. I had planned to do this for 30 minutes, but it seems I certainly exceeded that. So there it is. Thank you very much for tuning in, and I hope to see you next week on Thursdays, where we can talk about stress and the contributing factors, and maybe relieve in this era of the corona. Maybe it relieves some of the stress you're experiencing. Anyways, thank you for tuning in. I appreciate it. Take care of yourself. Bye-bye now.